thank you very much.
When I was growing up in Watertown, I played a center at the high school, and when I was playing, everybody would talk about guys who played before me. And Frankie Aracali was one of them, and Teddy Kelly was another, and Joe Malley was another one, and John Ames was another one. And they all compared me to different centers, and but there was one thing everybody said all the time is, you'll never be as good as John Vlachos. John Vlachos, class of 1951. As a sophomore, John played center and linebacker, and in those days football players played both offense and defense, and they played it without face masks. And he was a great football player. Very difficult sometimes to single out linemen and to determine which lineman is better than another and which lineman deserves Hall of Fame commendation. The best judge is what his teammates say about him. And all of his teammates talk about what a great player John Vlachos was. During his junior year, the team went 8-1 as a Class B team, the only loss being to Class A champion Arlington. He played on a great team with great teammates like Jimmy Lopez and Jim Renzi. John was the starting center for the North-South All-Star Game, a showcase game that would later be the Harriet Gannis All-Star Game. He was all-scholastic and all-state. He won the All-Scholastic Award for Outstanding Athletic Ability and Sportsmanship, presented by the old WCOP in 1951. He was named Watertown High School's best athlete by the Watertown High School Athletic Association. But after high school, John, who was recruited by football schools, decided to go into the service, and he joined the Marine Corps, spent his boot camp at Parris Island, and then went to Camp Pendleton in California. From there, he quickly found himself making a transition from the playing fields of Victory Field to a Marine Combat Infantry Company in the hills of Korea, facing North Korea and Chinese forces. During that service with the Marine Corps in Korea, John received 3 Purple Hearts for combat wounds suffered during military engagements. And at the completion of the war, his injuries prevented him from continuing to play contact sports. His football career was over. But anybody who has lived in this community knows what this superb athlete did. He devoted himself to community service. He was one of the most active members of the Watertown Youth Hockey Program, a director and parent president of the Watertown High School Hockey Club. During his tenure there, he was in charge of all hockey teams traveling from Watertown to various cities, and he was instrumental in the first American-Canadian Hockey Exchange. His children, Doreen and Leslie, John and Chris, all participated in athletics. And Chris, indeed, preceded his father, being inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1998. He was a wonderfully talented football player, one of the best linemen on one of the best teams to ever play at Watertown High. And he has equaled those athletic accomplishments in his commitment to community service. Please stand and welcome John Vlachos, Hall of Famer, class of 1951.
That songs bring back very vivid memories of my young youth. But thanks, Bob. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Kathy Gooden, I don't know you, but you're a real tough act to follow, believe me. I hope your child is as good as you are. You're really great. My football career started on Arsenal and Louise Street. Quirk Motors is now, Quirk Tire is now.
Well, everybody knows that the bird is aware. The weather bird, the bird is aware.
Private Marine, who was our first man in our neighborhood that was killed in Korea. I was to meet him a month before he got killed. I was going to meet him. But it wasn't. We were we used to play the kids from the East and the kids from the West. And we had quite a reputation. But it was good football, hard football. After junior high school, there was no football there, and Coach Carl Clem, our old basketball and baseball coach at the East Junior, introduced me to Coach Joe Murphy. When I was a sophomore, we used to get into some of the games, but we were really the tackling dummies for the varsity. My next year, my junior year, was with legendary coach Joe Zeno. Joe Zeno was just a father image, didn't take any guff from anybody. You either did it his way or you went in the highway. He was like a second father. He taught more football to all of us young kids than we could ever imagine. Bob Caprilli and I were talking about Joe the other day and were saying what a great coach, but what a great person and what he meant to us as growing up. My senior year, Joe used to get all the, I'm really fumbling, believe me. In my senior year, we had a 4-5 record. My junior year, like Bob said, was 8-1. We played Arlington. They beat us very bad. Arlington that year went down south. In those days, the best teams from up here went down south to play a high school. I believe they played Granbury High, and they lost. But if we had beat Arlington that year, we would have went down there. My senior year, one of our most difficult losses was from Brockton, the legendary Coach Columbo, who coached Brockton. Coach Zeno used to get all the hard teams. We played the Brocktons, Brooklines, Marbleheads, Fitchburg, all the tough teams that he would get. And in those days, like Bob said, we didn't play with face masks. We got broken noses, broken eyes, the whole thing. I was any successful athlete as a good supporting cast of players and coaches. I was lucky to play with my co-captain, Jim Lopez, and Gene Renzi, and the Renzi brothers, actually. His brother also played.